Heartbreak exposed. Little girl's surprising advice after groom leaves bride at the altar again. Jamie Collins adjusted her wedding dress for the umpteenth time, the sheer lace pulling tight around her chest, as if it sensed the tightened knot of anxiety in her stomach. White roses swayed in the gentle breeze, their delicate petals capturing the sun's warmth, almost mocking her optimism. Everyone she loved was gathered in the small Midwestern church, but all she could feel was a creeping fear. What if Tom, her childhood sweetheart, turned around and walked away? It wasn't the first time. The thought flickered in her mind like a warning light, and she squeezed Lily's hand, her spirited 8-year-old niece, as if the little girl's smallness could ground her against the torrent of what-ifs threatening to pull her under. Little did she know the moment she had waited for, the moment she had envisioned since she was a little girl, was merely minutes away. She blinked, trying to dispel shadows of doubt, forcing herself to focus on the roses, the altar, the joy of the moment. Everybody was smiling, everyone except her. The air hummed with excitement, yet an uneasy sliding sensation wormed through her chest each time Tom's name danced around her head. What was wrong with her? Shouldn't she be brimming with bliss? But beneath the layers of silk and satin, unease simmered. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the church bells rang out, however, the door swung open and the world cracked. Tom stood there, every hopeful face turned toward him except for hers. A mix of disbelief washed over the crowd. His gaze darted around the room as if searching for escape. Desperation mixed with familiar indecision. Then, without a word, never again. The collective gasp shattered her heart, each sound a cutting reminder of their past, of the promise broken again. Jamie's lungs constricted. He was leaving her, again. The revelation crushed her spirit, the ornate cake, a monument to all her dreams, now nothing but a cold, twisted remnant. Despair chilled her bones as she stepped back, each step heavier than the last. The audience was silent but felt oppressive, like hot blankets as she stood there, the weight of their stares threatening to drown her. Their whispers echoed around her, judgment reverberating near-deafeningly in her ears. In that moment, they weren't family or friends. They were a jury weighing her worth. Clenching her fists, she fought back tears. The world had crumbled, and with it, everything she believed she should be. Lily, however, approached with small, steady steps, clasping her hand. Looking up at Jamie with wide, innocent eyes, she said, "Maybe he wasn't brave enough for your love." That moment crystallized in the swirl of heartbreak, the spark of strength ignited. Could she cling to that? Could she reclaim her dreams, buried beneath a lifetime of Tom? A conflict raged within. She desperately wanted to patch the broken pieces, but did she even know how to love herself after this devastation? With every passing day, she grappled with the fallout. Jamie found herself facing a choice: submit to the whispers or turn her pain into something bright and beautiful. The world outside her door offered no refuge. Pressure loomed large. How was she supposed to write lesson plans when every word felt heavy, weighted with the disappointment of her instructors? And yet the deeper she spiraled into self-examination, the louder the call of her long-suppressed passions. Words that once filled her notebooks and paintbrushes that yearned for vibrant colors beckoned her forward. Tension gripped her, each brushstroke giving form to her newfound resilience. Weeks turned into months as she honed her art, piecing together herself anew. Yet glimpses of Tom's face haunted every canvas. Just as she began to feel whole, hope crashed into uncertainty. Her community's expectations pulsed around her like an unending tide, threatening to drown out her emerging voice. As she prepared for an art exhibit that promised to capture the vibrant tapestry of her transformation, shadows of fear lingered. But in that chaotic affirmation of her identity, her heart raced, pulsing with the bittersweet tension of possibility. a portrait of her struggle that echoed many buried souls. And then, just as her hopes climbed, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Tom stood there, uncertainty etched across his brow, the pivot between her past heartbreak and the potential of a fierce new beginning. The world spun, and the whispers hushed. Where would this next chapter lead her? Would she crumble again? Or would she stand tall, ready to confront her truth? The gallery buzzed with energy as Jamie made her final adjustments to the artwork that hung on the walls, each piece a testament to her journey through heartbreak and self-discovery. The vibrant colors sang, reflecting her evolution in ways she had only begun to truly understand. Was she a failure, as the echoes of doubt often reminded her? Or was she merely a phoenix, waiting for the right moment to rise? Each brushstroke had been an act of defiance, a declaration that she would not be defined by her greatest sorrow. Yet there he was, Tom, standing at the entrance, drawing all attention. A tumultuous storm brewed within her. Fear, anger, and nostalgia whirled chaotically. For months, she'd let creativity flow from within, but now, with his presence, clarity wavered like the flickering gallery lights. Why is he here? Jamie questioned internally. Did he come to gloat, to show support, or simply to disrupt her hard-won peace? Often, she found herself wrestling with the myriad of thoughts, a jumble of emotions threatening to churn up the healing she had worked so hard to cultivate. The instinctual urge to run surged forward, but she clenched her jaw, refusing to slip back into the shadows of her past. The crowd surrounded her with warmth, but every laugh, every compliment felt hollow beside the unresolved tension that Tom's presence incited. She needed to find her voice again, to confront him, not out of anger, but to reclaim the sense of autonomy she had fought so hard to gather. "Just breathe," she murmured, grounding herself through the art that had served as her lifeline. The paint, the canvas, the stories held in each piece now represented her truth, a truth that had grown heavier with each brushstroke, rich with lessons of love, loss, and self-acceptance. As the opening drew nearer, Jamie felt the stir of determination rise within her. The whispers of the past beckoned her, but their power began to wane as she spotted Lily across the room. The child's bright eyes sparkled with pride, an innocent beacon reminding Jamie of her own worth outside of Tom's narrative. In that instant, she realized she had to break the silence. Her journey was not just about healing for herself, but also about teaching Lily how to stand firmly in her own truth. "Excuse me," she said softly to the nearest gallery-goer, then turned toward Tom. Their eyes met. The world around blurred as their shared history crashed back like an old wave. Vulnerability swept over her. Taking a deep breath, Jamie took a step toward him. Each stride felt like a small act of rebellion against a past that had sought to chain her. "What do you want?" The question, firm but tinged with uncertainty, floated between them. She felt the weight of the gaze of her audience, a newfound anticipation mixed with her resolve. For a moment he faltered, stumbling over his words as if he were still that lost boy from their past. But he wasn't. He couldn't be. Jamie had fought her way into brighter days, and she wouldn't let the shadow of what once was drag her back. I came to see you," he stammered, then squared his shoulders, looking genuinely conflicted. "I thought I could try to explain." The moment teetered on the brink. Doubt threatened her newfound strength, yet Jamie felt an electric surge within her. "I'm done explaining. It's time we both listen, for once," she replied, voice steadying with each word. A mixture of adrenaline and fear coursed through her. This was her moment of truth, a chance to shape her narrative. With the anticipation of the room laced with tension, she could sense they were all witnesses to this confrontation, and just as she steeled herself, ready to embrace the revelations that would unfold, deep down she could feel the next chapter beginning to unravel. But as the words flew from their lips, did she truly want to hear the answers he had come to give? Would she emerge from this challenge stronger, or would old wounds reopen? Jamie stood before Tom, the weight of years and emotions collapsing into this single moment. The buzz of the gallery faded into a muted murmur, her surroundings becoming blurred in the fog of her thoughts. What she had fought to overcome, the pain, the confusion, the endless nights of doubt, was poised to erupt with Tom's every word. The first breath she took felt like an anchor, grounding her against the temptation to flee. Her own instincts whispered for escape, but every piece of art around them screamed defiance. Each vibrant canvas was a testament to her resilience, each brushstroke a proclamation of her journey. Jamie reminded herself that her voice mattered, not just in the chatter of the gallery but fundamentally, within her own spirit. "What do you have to explain?" she pressed, her voice firmer than she anticipated. As she spoke, she focused on the girl in the room, Lily, who seemed to blossom even in the background. Lily understood brightness and innocence, and if Jamie faltered now, what message would she send to her daughter? Tom's gaze flickered. He seemed to draw strength from the gravity of the moment, but she could still see the uncertainty lingering in his eyes. "I know I messed up. I didn't see things clearly, Jamie. I didn't understand everything you were going through." His words wove through her mind like a soft melody, echoing memories of shared dreams. But she would not let nostalgia cloud her judgment now. "You're right. You didn't understand. But I was there, Tom. I was always there, putting pieces back together." He shifted, vulnerability apparent in his expression. And just as Jamie thought he might break, give her the kind of heartfelt apology that might ease the years of hurt, the moment tightened, pivoting into something deeper. "What do you want from me?" she asked, lowering her voice to a whisper, aware that the room held its breath. Tom hesitated, brows furrowing as though he were grappling with the weight of his own honesty. "I want you to know that I'm not the same person I used to be," he confessed. "I want to be better, want to be—" "What you want doesn't matter right now," Jamie interrupted, clarity slicing through her emotions. "This isn't about you. It's about what I've built for myself. I'm not waiting for you to validate my progress." She surprised herself with her calm resolve. It felt liberating to speak her truth, shedding the old identities that Tom often represented. Every season of hurt was now a canvas on which she painted her growth, a new identity that she clutched fiercely. There was no immediate response from Tom. He simply regarded her with the kind of intensity that both unsettled and emboldened her. It was the moment she needed, one that propelled her closer to the identity she had boldly begun to construct. In the background, voices rose and fell, the sound of admiration echoing from guests as they examined her art. Each praise felt almost as if it belonged to her, independent of what Tom once implied about her worth. The realization sank in. This was her show, her triumph, a celebration of her strength and artistry. But his silence lingered like a dark cloud. She could see realization churning behind his eyes, his past indiscretions weighing heavily against her blossoming present. "Jamie, I'm done being your emotional crutch," she declared, her voice unwavering amidst the internal storm. "You either find your own strength or let go of me." The ultimatum was less of a threat and more of a plea for clarity, for both of them. Resolving this confrontation could lead to her liberation. As tension pooled around them, Jamie felt an electric undercurrent. Was Tom finally understanding her? Their eyes locked, and in that charged silence, Jamie sensed the moment stretching infinitely, a fork in the road where nothing could return to how it once was. But the unspoken questions hung heavy. Could a dialogue exist without a fallback into the past? Would she be able to keep pushing forward, carving out her own legacy? Or would she find herself ensnared once again by this haunting presence? With every heartbeat, she realized that confrontation might introduce not just closure, but untold complexities. The artwork she poured her soul into could not shield her from the depth of those emotions. As she held her gaze steady on Tom, a flicker of uncertainty pulsed in her chest. The curtain was drawn, but the next act awaited. Decisions would soon have to be made, and not just about Tom, but about herself as well. What would it mean to fully step into her own worth? The atmosphere crackled with suspense, and Jamie felt the familiar tension building, thickening like paint on a palette. What unabridged truth awaited her in the wake of this confrontation? The silence between them crackled with unresolved tension, and Jamie felt her chest tighten. She was acutely aware that this moment could shift everything. Could she redefine her boundaries? Could she firmly establish the life she envisaged, free of Tom's shadow? As she looked into his eyes, she realized that he was mirroring her internal conflict, uncertainty exchanging glances with desperation. "Jamie," he finally said, his voice nearly breaking. I know I didn't appreciate you. I see that now. But change takes time." "Change," she echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "Change is not just a verbal affirmation, Tom. It's action. It's accountability. You can't just ask me to believe in you because you dictate it. You have to earn it." The firmness of her voice surprised even her. It felt like a burgeoning strength was awakening inside, something that had long lain dormant, suppressed by years of fear and doubt. Perhaps this was the very confrontation she needed, not just for Tom, but for herself. Setting a standard, guarding her self-worth more fiercely than before. Tom's face fell. The flicker of realization crossed his features momentarily. It was as if Jamie saw a glimpse of the man he could be, yet still remained reluctant to leave behind the familiar bindings of their shared past. "So, what do you want? More time?" he asked, voice shaky. "No," she said, her resolve crystallizing. "I want to take control of my narrative. I won't linger, hoping for change. If you've changed, show me. But if you can't, then we must accept the truth that our stories are diverging." Her heart raced at the clarity of her declaration. Confronting Tom was a catalyst, thrusting her forward into the unknown. It was daunting but exhilarating. Their connection had been woven with threads of love, disappointment, and codependence. She was deciding which strands she would continue to weave and which she would cut. Jamie could feel the weight of her decisions settling heavily around her shoulders, but it was nothing compared to the relief that accompanied breaking this long-held dependency. And then, a thought sprung forth, slipping past her lips before she could question its validity. "Maybe it's not just about you finding your strength," she murmured, aware of the revelation tumbling forth. "Maybe I need to find my own too, outside of you. It's time for me to get out of this cycle." As she spoke, the memories of her artistic evolution filled her mind, each piece created from pain and growth, a narrative of resilience that had nothing to do with her past bonds. With determination, she grasped the threads of her new identity, breathing fresh life into it. "Jamie," he started, but she raised a hand, silencing him. She felt a flicker of sadness for what might have been, but it swiftly transitioned into empowerment. This conversation, painful but necessary, was reshaping her path. "Let's not drag this out. I want to release myself from whatever this is," she stated, her voice resonating with newfound authority. The gallery around them pulsed with energy. It was a living reminder of the vibrant life waiting for her. What had once been a crutch was now a revelation. Lily approached them slowly, her small features perplexed as she sensed the intensity of the conversation. Jamie knelt, meeting her daughter's eyes. "Sweetheart, sometimes we have to let go so we can hold on to the things that matter more." Jamie felt her breath hitch in her throat. Was she teaching Lily to embrace change? Tom watched, his expression a canvas of regret and realization. "You're right," he finally said, "and I won't hold you back. If this is what you need, I understand." But Jamie needed to feel more than understanding. She craved space to explore a life where her identity wouldn't be shaped around someone else's mistakes. It wasn't just about who she was becoming in relation to Tom. It was about carving an existence rich with creativity and independence. As she stood up, her heart raced with equal parts trepidation and exhilaration. She was ready to step into the world, witnessing her story unfold without needing validation from anyone, not even Tom. Yet as she glanced back at him, a part of her still wondered, would he ever truly grasp the depth of his impact? Was she prepared for the possibility of moving forward, unmoored from their shared history? A new kind of fear thrummed beneath her resolve, and Jamie understood it was time to confront that uncertainty. What would she discover about herself now, as the curtain lifted, alone, in her pursuit of authenticity? Jamie stepped back into the vibrant chaos of the gallery, her heart racing with the aftermath of her confrontation with Tom. The walls, adorned with vivid colors and striking contrasts, mirrored her internal turmoil. Each artwork seemed to pulse with the sense of possibility she had just claimed for herself. But even in a space filled with creative expression, The specter of doubt lingered like a shadow. As she surveyed the room, her mind reeled with the implications of her newfound resolve. How does one truly forge ahead when the past lingers like a heavy cloak? The certainty she had demanded from Tom was now a mirror reflecting her own insecurities. What was she willing to do to become the person she envisioned? With Lily at her side, curiosity twinkled in the little girl's eyes, her innocence providing a needed moment of lightness. "Mommy, will we get to see the pictures you make now?" Lily asked, breaking the tension that had ensnared Jamie's heart. The simple question held weight far beyond its simplicity, a representation of the faith her daughter had in her potential. "Yes, sweetheart, we will," Jamie affirmed, determination infusing her voice. The acknowledgement of her talent stirred something deep within. She glanced around, absorbing the energy of the other artists who filled the space, talking, painting, and creating, each lost in their own interpretations of life. Wasn't that what she craved, the freedom to express and explore her own voice? She took a step into the thrumming center of the gallery, feeling more present than she had in years. She scanned the faces, some focused on their projects, others passionately debating the merit of particular pieces. Jamie realized in that moment that she had spent so long in the sidelines, watching but never participating fully. A group of artists huddled around a canvas, enthusiastically discussing an avant-garde piece. Inspiration bubbled within her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a desire to engage, to step forward and share her own ideas. Striding toward them, she could already hear the words formulating in her mind. But then, a sudden pang of hesitation gripped her. It would be so easy to shrink back into the shadows, to let her fears and insecurities constrict her voice once more. She had spent too many years in Tom's presence, diffusing her brilliance into muted tones of uncertainty. No more. "Excuse me," she interjected, her tone steady, surprising even herself. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I have some thoughts about that piece." The group turned, offering her curious glances. The warmth of their interest wrapped around her like a lifeline, and with a deep breath she plunged into her analysis, igniting a discussion that flowed like an electric current. In her mind, a flood of creativity surged, each word sparking further ideas. There was a sense of liberation in her expression, the sensation that she was reclaiming not just her voice, but her identity. After their spirited exchange, the others offered smiles and praise, their acceptance validating an ember of confidence she hadn't realized she possessed. When the conversation waned and Jamie turned back to Lily, who was watching in awe, she couldn't help but feel exhilarated. This was her life now, her narrative, and she was no longer standing in Tom's shadow. As the unease of their prior conversation lingered, a thought echoed within her. Could she truly embrace her independence without the lingering emotions of their shared history? In forging this new path, would she encounter resistance not just from others but from within? Jamie felt a burgeoning curiosity about what lay ahead. As she exited the gallery, the cacophony of voices faded, and she questioned whether she could confront whatever obstacles awaited her, both external and internal. The horizon held promises of daring discoveries, and Jamie, breathless and invigorated, resolved to not just create art, but to create a life that reflected her authenticity. Was she ready to face the shadows of her past, the fears still clawing at her resolve? What could sprout from the ashes of those emotions if she allowed herself to truly engage in her story? The evening air was crisp as Jamie and Lily walked home, the neon lights of the gallery fading into the backdrop of their lives. Jamie's heart still fluttered with remnants of exhilaration, but shadows loomed large in the corners of her mind. The encounter had left her buzzing, yet the nagging doubt persisted. Was she truly prepared to forge an identity apart from Tom? Once they entered their modest apartment, the familiar chaos engulfed them. Lily's toys sprawled across the living room floor, the sweet aroma of dinner wafting from the kitchen. It was comforting and inviting, but as Jamie glanced around, she felt like a ghost in her own home. Memories lingered like clingy ivy, wrapping around her self-perception, constricting her ability to thrive. "Mommy," Lily called, interrupting her thoughts. "Can we paint before dinner?" The innocence in her voice tugged at Jamie's heart. She had intended to work on her art tonight, to recapture the momentum from earlier, but the idea felt daunting. Art was meant to liberate, yet it now loomed as an obligation. Jamie felt a familiar uncertainty claw at her. What if her work didn't measure up? What if it was still tainted by Tom's critical eye? She inhaled sharply, considering the truth of those fears. They were illusory, products of countless past interactions, but they threatened her resolve. "Sure, sweetie, let's paint," she replied, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. Perhaps creating alongside Lily would rekindle her creative spark. Settling down at the kitchen table, they cluttered it with bright paints and paper. "What will you paint, Mommy?" Lily asked, her innocent inquiry both encouraging and intimidating. "I'm not sure yet. Just something real," Jamie responded, her own answer surprising her. Real. The word echoed in her mind as she dabbed her brush into bold colors, trying to free herself from the haunting expectations that chose to reside alongside her. As Jamie began sweeping colors onto the paper, Lily's laughter filled the air, a playful counterpoint to Jamie's tumultuous thoughts. The chaos of vibrant hues spilled onto the canvas, a beautiful representation of unrefined emotion. For every stroke Jamie made, the weight of Tom's shadow seemed to lighten, illuminating her essence underneath. Suddenly Lily chimed in. "Mommy, look! Mine is a little messy, but it's fun." Jamie glanced over at her daughter's wide grin and the cluster of scribbles that danced across the paper's surface. It struck a chord deep within her. Why had she equated creativity with perfection? Both were inherent to the vibrant humanity they were expressing. The messiness and accidents of life were as valid as the final products. "Yours is amazing, Lily. It's real and full of life, just like you," Jamie said, pride swelling within her. The truth of that shifted something in her. The idea that art, and indeed her life, didn't need to be polished to be beautiful. In that moment, Jamie made a decision. She gathered her chaotic emotions and intended not just to paint but to confront her past boldly through her art. She possessed the ability to tell her story, raw, unfiltered, and genuine. This realization settled in her chest like a warm fire, illuminating the dark corners of her insecurities. As she completed her piece, a realization struck her. She was not just a survivor of her past, she was a creator of her future. With every brushstroke, she was reclaiming her narrative, transforming her pain into a canvas of hope and potential. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed through the apartment. The sound jolted her back to reality, casting a veil of uncertainty once again. A stream of dread coursed through her veins. Was it him? Just as she steeled herself for confrontation, she looked down at Lily, who was entirely unaware, blissfully focused on her artwork. With a mixture of trepidation and resolve, she opened the door, bracing herself for whatever lay beyond. Would this be a challenge to her newfound independence or an opportunity for growth? As she glimpsed the figure on her doorstep, Jamie's heart raced with the unpredictability of what she might unleash in her life. Would she embrace the unfolding drama, or retreat into her freshly discovered sanctuary? The answer to that question lay just beyond the threshold. The door swung open, revealing a shadowed figure framed against the dim light of the hallway. Jamie's heart thudded in her chest as she squinted to make out the features of her unexpected visitor. It was Brian, an old acquaintance from the art community. Startled, she had half-formed thoughts of slamming the door shut to protect her newfound space of self-expression. "Jamie," he said, his voice warm yet tinged with concern. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. I heard you might be doing a show soon and wanted to check in." "Now?" she interrupted, her emotions flaring defensively. It wasn't the timing that surprised her, but the intensity of what she had begun to feel for her art. It felt personal, yet Brian was a reminder of the external expectations that clung to her like a second skin. "Yeah, I just thought, it's been a while since we spoke and I thought you might want to talk," he said, a hint of hesitation in his voice. Jamie felt a flicker of warmth creeping back into her chest but quashed it. "I appreciate it, Brian, but I'm a little occupied right now. Lily is busy with her own masterpiece, I can see that," he interjected, glancing past her. "But I'd love to hit pause on the world for you." I know things have been rough. Rough doesn't cover it, Jamie exhaled, the tension of the past week crashing over her like waves. Lily's laughter faded into the background, giving her space to breathe and confront the vulnerability she'd been trying to shield. Then why not let me help? We can talk art, life, whatever. We were friends once, he encouraged, stepping slightly closer, his gaze earnest. Friends. The word evoked an emotional tempest. Jamie closed her eyes for a beat, mentally reviewing her goals. How much further could she push herself? She was at the brink of something monumental, and yet this visit could either solidify her growth or drown her in nostalgia. What if I don't want to be that person anymore? She finally asked, her voice timid yet resolute. That's the beauty of it, Jamie. You can reinvent yourself every single day. You don't have to carry the weight of your past. Brian's eyes held a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Jamie felt herself drawn in, those words rippling through her like a current. She took a step back, breathing deeply, weighing the possibility of a discussion. Was she brave enough to unearth the scraps of her past in the presence of someone who had shared part of it? Okay, let's talk. But I can't shake the feeling that you're here to judge. Not judging. Just hoping to listen, he said intensely. You don't have to drag your past with you, Jamie. It's about your evolution. The intensity of his words hung in the air, and Jamie felt curiosity bloom within her. Could this interaction nudge her closer to that elusive sense of liberation she craved? The decision felt heavy on her shoulders, but the distance from Tom's shadow ironically felt larger with the prospect of real dialogue. All right, she relented. But this is on my terms. I need to create my narrative now, and that requires honesty, not only with you, but also with myself. Brian nodded, a look of encouragement sweeping over his face. They moved to the kitchen table where Lily had left a swirl of vibrant colors, fragments of her innocent creativity. It became a sanctuary, warm and alive, an invitation to explore both their artistic journeys. As they settled in to share, Jamie felt a soft glow of confidence rekindling within her, raw and unfiltered, just like that first stroke of paint she'd made earlier. In that fluid moment, she understood the core of her transformation. The vulnerability latent in sharing her story felt stronger than fear. But as they delved deeper into her artistic ambitions, an unexpected realization dawned upon her. The very act of opening up could unearth old wounds and uncloseted fears she might not be ready to face. When Jamie caught sight of a familiar name peeking out from Brian's portfolio, a name entwined with painful memories, the ground beneath her seemed to shift. Would this conversation help her grow and reclaim the artist she longed to be, or would it lead her down a road littered with buried sorrow? As she wrestled with the implications, the stakes of her journey became clearer. The moment of truth was upon her. She faced not just Brian, but herself. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was abundantly clear. Stepping forward meant wrestling with shadows she thought she had left behind. "Are you ready for what's next?" he asked. And for the first time she wasn't certain if that was directed at her art or her heart. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken words and unacknowledged fears. Jamie shifted in her seat, grappling with the stirring anxiety in her stomach as she stared at Brian's portfolio. A familiar sense of dread crept in, threading through her thoughts like a haunting melody. It was as if his presence had resurrected phantoms from her past, and she felt particularly fragile at that moment. "What's in there?" she asked, gesturing towards the portfolio, a mix of reluctance and curiosity bubbling beneath her surface. "Just some of my recent work," Brian replied, steady but cautious. "A few projects I thought might inspire you." The word inspire suffocated her. Inspiration had been a distant friend until recently, masked by her overwhelming self-doubt and the weight of expectations. Was inspiration meant to be accompanied by doubt? Did every artist wrestle with their demons, or was it just her? "Let's start with you then," he suggested, opening the portfolio without waiting for her consent. "Tell me what you see." As he displayed a vibrant piece intermixed with abstract shapes and lines, Jamie noticed how effortlessly he spun the narrative of his art, weaving in joy and disappointment authentically. She envied his ease, feeling herself retreat into a familiar shell. Reminding herself of her commitment to honesty, she pushed against the tide of self-protection. "It's chaotic. It feels like it's screaming for attention," she said, her voice steady. "And yet it feels free. There's a certain beauty in the mess." "Exactly. And it could reflect your own journey," he said. "Art isn't always about clarity. Sometimes it's the chaos that builds growth." His words caught in her throat, the idea stirring something deep within her. Chaos, a word she associated with her life recently, wasn't something to shy away from. It was, instead, a prelude to clarity. "Do you feel that way about your own work?" she asked, probing deeper, attempting to unravel the truth within herself. "Absolutely. I embrace the chaos because it opens doors to new expressions. Sometimes the most profound art comes from pain," he admitted, his gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that felt like an invitation to cross the threshold of her guarded heart. "Pain," the word echoed, and as if conjured by her unearthed memories, images of her past flooded her mind. Tom, disappointments, failures lingering like threads of a once vibrant tapestry. Brian noticed her moment of reflection and gently added, "What if you let it out? What if you let your art explore that pain?" "What if?" she repeated, her pulse quickening. The thought of risking exposure paralyzed her. The weight of vulnerability felt like a boulder on her chest. "How can you evolve if you don't confront what's holding you back?" he challenged softly, reaffirming the space she was in. Fingers trembling, she reached for the portfolio. As she flipped through pages of Brian's art, each piece displayed an eloquent honesty, layers of emotions laid bare, vulnerable, yet strikingly beautiful. Those feelings could be her own. The realization hit her like a jolt of clarity. "That's where I am," she confessed, her voice a whisper. "I'm afraid that if I dig too deep, what I find won't be worth displaying." "Or it could be the catalyst of your greatest work," he countered. "Art is not about pristine perfection. It's a conversation between you and your audience, a slice of your truth." The weight of his words hung in the air. Jamie realized that for too long, she had tangled her identity with the fear of judgment. As if urging her toward the precipice of action, Brian leaned closer. "Let's start with just one piece. One fragment of what you're feeling. You can let go. Pain can morph into beauty." A spark of determination ignited deep within her, but doubt still flared in her mind. Remembering Tom, the laughter that had turned to silence, the disappointment woven into her memories, Jamie felt the urge to retreat. Yet, was retreating an option? Each piece of art she'd create would reflect her journey, raw and authentic. "You said I can reinvent myself every day," she murmured, feeling the resolve grow. "Every day," he affirmed, a smile faintly appearing, a beacon of guidance. Could this moment be the pivot point she desperately needed? To express her truth could mean to own it, to sculpt her narrative with the chisel of honesty. Before she could overthink, she reached for her paintbrush, her first tangible step into the chaos. The next chapter awaited, filled with potential and uncertainty, but perhaps, just perhaps, it would lead to the reclamation of the artist she sought to be. As the brush met the canvas, a flicker of fear surged within her. What if she revealed too much? Could she navigate the tangled skeins of her emotions without losing herself again? A realization washed over her. She was at the cusp of discovery, standing between her past and the freedom she craved. "Are you prepared to see what emerges when you let the truth unfold?" Brian posed, and as she paused to consider, her heart raced in anticipation and dread of what awaited her on that canvas. The brush hovered over the canvas, each heartbeat pounding a tempo of uncertainty in her chest. Jamie stared blankly at the pristine surface, the possibilities swirling in her mind but unable to crystallize into a coherent thought. Behind her trembling fingers lay a sprawling array of emotions, years of anguish, of disappointments, of desire, and yet she felt paralyzed, caught in a moment that seemed both monumental and fleeting. Brian's presence beside her felt simultaneously grounding and daunting. His breath steadied her, but also ignited an anxiety that crept up her spine. What if her truth was too messy, too vulnerable, too exposed? She felt as if she were being asked to remove an armor she had worn for years, each piece forged from past failures and hurt. "Just start with a color," he encouraged, his voice soft and steady, a gentle nudge rather than a push. "Let it guide you." She took a deep breath, pulling in a mixture of courage and fear. Slowly, she dipped the brush into a deep crimson, the color of her fervor and pain intertwining. The first stroke felt electric, a surge of expression flowing from her arm. Despite the initial hesitation, she moved forward, allowing the liquid hue to cascade onto the canvas, noting how it embodied the heartache she'd kept tightly wrapped. A prison forged in silence. With each stroke, the chaos she'd previously feared began to unveil itself as a canvas of discovery. Bits of her childhood laughter mingled with future dreams. Shadowed moments with Tom intertwined with flashes of bittersweet memories. Euphoric moments steeped in love. The echo of disappointment spilling over in darkness. "Look at that," Brian marveled quietly, glancing at the burgeoning image. "See how those colors resonate? It's alive." His affirmation sent a shot of warmth through her, and for a fleeting moment, Jamie felt the shackles of her doubts lift. Her heart was racing, a rhythm both frightening and exhilarating. Pain could be beautiful. It was going to be transformational. As the colors blended and twisted, she forced herself to confront the memories that lurked like shadows on the periphery of her consciousness. Each brushstroke was an invitation to engage with feelings she had long neglected. What if she embraced these painful narratives instead of running from them? Yet even with this burgeoning sense of freedom, harsh whispers began to seep in. "What if no one understands?" they hissed. "What if exposing the truth only leads to more hurt?" Memories of critiques, disapproving gazes, and harsh words stabbed at her, but she fought back against them. This journey wasn't about others. It was hers. Determined, she added hints of gold, tracing the edges of the crimson heaviness. This was where the magic resided, within the juxtaposition of light and darkness, joy and sorrow. "I know where you're going with this." Brian's voice cut through her reverie, precise and insightful. "It's a conversation between the light and dark inside you. You're creating a narrative, one that isn't just yours but resonates universality. Others will feel this." The thought sent ripples of anxiety through her, but there was a powerful allure to what he said. Could she really be offering a piece of herself to the world? Her journey wasn't free of flaws, but it was powerful because it was her own. She paused, brush hovering, contemplating the canvas. Who would she be if she dared to display her truth, however untidy it might be? Would she finally shrug off the weight of past expectations and judgments, allowing herself the grace to explore? Just as she began to take the plunge into these uncharted waters, her phone buzzed unexpectedly, an intrusion into her sanctuary of creation. Jamie glanced at the screen, her heart dropping. A message from Tom. Each pulsing vibration was a reminder of a past claim, of a heartbreak that had woven itself into the very fabric of her artistry. Would this message pull her back into the shadows? "Are you going to answer it?" Brian queried, concern dripping from his tone. But curiosity too. She hesitated, her heart torn between desire for closure and the pull of her new resolve. In this moment, the weight of her choices settled on her like a thick fog. Responding to Tom could mean reopening old wounds, yet ignoring it felt like shackling herself again. Jamie inhaled deeply, fingers tightening around the brush. Was she ready to embrace everything that could come next? The message, the struggles, the art. The moment of clarity hovered before her, and she felt it beckon, an invitation to a confrontation she had long avoided. Maybe it's time to face what I've been dodging. The thought surged within her, filled with urgency. As she steadied her breath, she realized she had a decision to make. Her gaze shifted toward the canvas, colors splashed with a newfound purpose. She had just begun her representation of internal chaos, but it was only the first layer. Was she ready to peel away more and let the world see? And as she stood on the precipice, the screen lit up again, prompting a moment where Jamie had to decide. Would she choose to respond to her past, or allow her art to guide her into a future unbound by fear? The next moment awaited, and the only certainty was the potential for transformation. Jamie stood at the edge of her vibrant canvas, the emotions of the past swirling like the colors beneath her brush. Each hue told a story, a journey of heartbreak, resilience, and profound self-discovery. As she dipped her brush into the crimson paint, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air, but this time she felt different. A knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach, yet there was an accompanying pulse of empowerment, a testament to the strength she had cultivated in the aftermath of her confrontation with Tom and her newfound sense of autonomy. With every stroke, she began to unravel the intricate tapestry of her emotions. The crimson color poured forth, signaling the heartache she had channeled since Tom's abandonment. But now it was interlaced with flecks of gold and deep indigo, echoes of her laughter with Lily, moments of creative enlightenment, and the quiet strength she had fostered. This was her truth, painted in the raw form of art that celebrated her journey rather than shying away from her vulnerabilities. "Keep going. You're tapping into something real," Brian's voice encouraged, standing beside her, a steady presence that she had chosen to invite back into her life. He could sense her unease but saw the artistry unfolding before them, vivid and powerful. In that moment she realized that art didn't just encapsulate joy or triumph. It was an expression of the full spectrum of human experience, the messiness, the contradictions, and ultimately the growth that came from it all. She dipped her brush into a bright turquoise, letting the coolness contrast sharply with the fiery red. The colors clashed and bled into one another, each stroke signaling liberation as she sculpted her identity as an artist, free from the confines of past relationships. This art was a reflection of her, authentic, flawed, and beautifully messy. The canvas was evolving as she poured her heart onto it, transforming her pain into something magnificent. "Don't forget to breathe," Brian said, his gentle reminder grounding her. "This moment belongs to you. Embrace it." Inhaling deeply, Jamie absorbed the truth of those words. The reminder illuminated the choice she faced with Tom. The urge to confront her past was not just a moment for closure. It was about reclaiming her narrative. The past did not define her future. Rather, it served as a stepping stone for her desired evolution. And just as she started pouring herself deeper into the artistic process, a sudden vibration interrupted. The notification from Tom echoed in her mind, a siren signifying a past she had bravely fought to leave behind. Yet Jamie opted to let it lie unanswered, choosing to pour her heart into the art first. "We're constructing something incredible here," Brian remarked, stepping back to appraise the artwork. "It captures the heart of your experience. It's evocative." Acknowledgement settled around her like a warm embrace. An overwhelming sense of accomplishment enveloped her. The fear that had once gripped her, slowly releasing its hold. She was jettisoning past expectations and paving her own path. This art wasn't just a reflection of her pain. It was a celebration of evolution, growth, and the undying determination to reclaim her voice. "Are you ready to showcase this?" Brian asked softly, and Jamie felt a spark of excitement pulse through her. Now is the moment. The world deserves to see your journey. With clarity blooming in her heart, Jamie knew that she had matured beyond doubt. She had created not only visual content but a narrative of healing. This was her triumph, her accomplishment, and she needed to embrace this progress, not allow old shadows to creep back in. "Yes," Jamie replied, confidence now unfurling like the canvas before her. "I'm ready to share my story." As she gazed at the artwork, reflecting on her transformation, the intimidating shadows of her past dissipated into a mere whisper. She knew she could shape her future beyond the confines of her history. Jamie was prepared to demonstrate this evolution, to prove to herself and her audience that she was not the timid girl who once crumbled under uncertainties. In the days that followed, she organized an exhibition, her art hanging prominently, each piece telling of a journey incomplete yet beautifully evolving. The room buzzed with excitement as attendees marveled at the raw beauty of her work. With each compliment and appreciative gaze, Jamie felt vindication. The whispers of doubt were overridden by the warmth of recognition. She had achieved what she once thought unattainable. Her art symbolized her journey, a kaleidoscope of complexity that illuminated her path. But even amidst the applause, a soft voice called for her attention. It was Lily, standing in awe of her mother's work, her tiny hands clasped with pride. "Mommy, you did it!" the little girl exclaimed, magic sparkling in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, we did it," Jamie corrected, embracing the small girl with relief and surprise. This was not just a victory for her alone, but a shared triumph, a legacy she would pass down to her daughter. In that moment, Jamie understood that she was not only reclaiming her artistry, but crafting a narrative of empowerment for those who looked up to her. She was confidently stepping into a life of her own, newly poised and ready to embrace every challenge. "Let's create together," Jamie suggested, pulling out the paints once again to revisit the beautiful mess they had begun together. This was the future she envisioned, a life sculpted through art and unconditional support. Undoubtedly, Jamie Collins was flourishing with newfound confidence, and as she looked at her daughter, she knew that she was precisely where she needed to be. Her journey was not merely about overcoming heartbreak, it was about the emergence of resilience, one brushstroke at a time, is a legacy of strength waiting to be told. Now is the time for you to embrace the journey of your own growth. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your engagement matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Your voice counts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of personal overcoming stories. You need to show your support and help others find their paths through art, strength, and authenticity.